businesses grow to the level of their constraints, right? They'll grow to the level of the constraint, of the current constraint of the business. They'll grow to that level of their constraints. It's up to the leader to correctly identify those constraints and focus on fixing them, okay? Because throughout the 2 days, a common theme, a recurring theme, was that most business owners do not identify what their actual constraint is. All right, folks, we are live within the Facebook group, okay? So, wanted to, do this session because I had a really interesting experience, right? So, thank you so much for the folks joining us live here within the Zoom call. We're also streaming this live within the Facebook group, and this will eventually be on our YouTube channel as well. So you'll have a chance to watch the whole thing. So wanted to talk to you guys. A really great experience I had. This was last week, so this is hot off the presses. I have been a follower of Alex Hormozi for probably the last 5 years, right? 4 or 5 years. I became aware of Alex. It's funny. I was in a high level mastermind. This was 5 years ago, and one day the leader of that mastermind had a special guest on. And I'm like, hey, I want you guys to meet this guy. He's really smart. You might not have heard of him, but he's a really cool guy. And it was Alex Hormozi. And it was in his wife beater shirt and the nose patch and the curly hair and the hat and everything, right? And I had never seen this guy in my life, but we had like a probably 1 hour chat with him. He had talked a few topics, asked some questions, and I was quite frankly blown away by the depth of knowledge, the thoughtfulness, and the quality of the advice he gave us. Right, we were all small business owners, trying to make it big, right? With online based businesses, right? So I was really interested. That was cool. A year after that, end of 2021, I think that was the end of 2020. End of 2021, I realized he had a podcast. I had never, really seen his content, and I finally subscribed to his podcast, and I thought his podcast was phenomenal. It's a really good podcast, and he talks about general business advice, right? Marketing, sales, geared towards businesses that are online, but a lot of it applies to brick and mortar businesses, real estate businesses, all these things, right? So I became a fan of the podcast, and then after 2021, 2022, 2023, he just started blowing up, right? He released a book, $100 million offers. When did that book come out? $100 million offers. First published date. It was released in 2021. Okay, so it was released in July 2021. So I was aware of the guy. I read his book, and was blown away the quality. The podcast is also really, really good. And then he released another book, a year later, around $100 million. Or was it a couple of years later? $100 million leads. It was in 2023. So 2 years later, he released his book, $100 million leads. And that, launch of that book kind of broke the internet. There was hundreds of thousands of people attended like this live stream of him releasing his second book, which I was a part of. I bought the book. I thought it was a great book. And I've been following his content for a while. Okay, he's blown up on YouTube. The podcast is huge. He's a best-selling author, etc. So Alex Hormozi's claim to fame is that he's a marketer for gyms. He was a gym owner. He's like a really buff guy, gym owner, made his name doing marketing for gyms, brick and mortar gyms. He owned some. He started doing marketing for them, and he sold his marketing company and several of the companies he founded around the gym space for 8 figures, right? He sold it for tens of millions of dollars, and then he started doing what he really likes to do. He started a company called acquisition.com, and he buys up companies, scales them up, and then sells them, right? It's kind of like a private equity firm, like a small private equity firm focusing on small businesses, right? Compared to these massive, billion-dollar private equity firms. He's a relatively small firm, but he buys small businesses and elevates them to takes $1 million business and elevates it to tens of millions of dollars and then sells it. And so he's talked to a lot of small business owners. He knows a lot of what they deal with. He knows that the kind of business that I own, that I am, right? Small business. He deals with them every day and he helps them scale, right? For his own personal company, but his content is all around that. How do you grow a business? How do you grow a business? If you guys want to grow your business, I think reading his book, $100 million offers or $100 million leads is a great idea. And through his content, I discovered that he had this lead magnet, this really good tool that's called the Scaling Roadmap. Okay, Scaling Roadmap, and he's been I had disconnected from his content for a few months, so he's been doing this for a year now, actually more than a year, like a year and a half. He's been promoting this lead magnet, the Scaling Roadmap. They kind of, you put in your numbers and your information, and it automatically gives you an assessment of where you are in your business, like from step 1 to step 10, right? Like where you are on that chart, on that level, step 1 to step 10. And he provides it to you for free. And part of that, as part of that, and that product is great, by the way. It's a 1 hour course on each level, and you can look at all of them if you want to. You can, you can read about it. There's a lot of really cool stuff in that. So I recommend you do that regardless of where you are, right? But he also, as part of that, there's a funnel. It's an entry to a funnel. It says, hey, if you want to come in person to meet Alex and his team and get, like personalized advice, one-on-one, well, one to many in person in Las Vegas, sign up for the Scaling Workshop, right? Like, wow, that sounds really interesting. I'm going to check that out. And they're very upfront about it. They're saying, hey, it's an in-person event. It costs $5,000 to attend. It's 2 full days. You got to come to Vegas, and here are the available dates. If this is not interesting to you, don't apply. Like, there's no bait and switch. There's no hidden price. There's nothing. There's none of that. Like, I imagine those calls they take for people that are interested are the easiest sales calls ever, right? Because they put everything up front. If this is interesting to you, book a call with our team and we'll get you signed up. And I signed up, right? So you know what? I've been following his content for a long time. I've gotten a ton of value from his free stuff, or his almost free stuff like his book, and so I bet I'll get a lot of value from this event. So I booked this probably beginning of February, March timeframe of this year, and I booked it for April. I was supposed to go in April. I got sick with the flu. It's been that kind of year for me. It's a lot of seasonal allergies. I had to and they allow you to rebook it for no fee, right? They allowed me to do that. So I rebooked it for May, and I was there for the middle of May. I was there last week. That was, what was that, May 12th and the 13th. I flew out there for a couple days in Vegas. That's always fun to do. Although I'll be honest with you guys, I'm a little older now, right? I've got little kids at home, so this was not a party trip at all, right? I didn't even like play. I usually play blackjack or I'll play poker at these. I didn't even play anything, right? I got there. I was all day in these workshops, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. both days. And at the end, there was networking. I'll talk about that. I was talking to people. And then at the end, I just wanted to get home, get in my room and sleep, right? Because, I was, like an hour ahead of everyone. So I'd get up at 5 in the morning because that's what I'm used to. And I would just get tired, right? So that not super interesting on the party side. But I went to Vegas and I attended this event. And it was a great event. Like if you're able to do it, if you've been following the content of Alex Hormozi, and that kind of jives with you, that kind of energy, that kind of advice is good for you. You've gotten value from it in the past. I think attending the Scaling Workshop is like a no-brainer. I think it's a great, great, great idea for you to do. You should check it out. I think it's a great, great event, right? And I'll break down the whole event. That's the next thing I want to do. I'm going to break down the whole event and going to just talk to you guys about the breakout, how it worked, and why it was valuable to me. Okay. So, you get there day one and they give you, this little workbook. There's a workbook here. I can't share like what the workbook is about because, it's copyrighted, but this is what it looks like. You get a workbook and there's a lot of, information in there, a lot of slides you're going to see during the day. But you can take a bunch of notes. It's designed for you to take notes because the slides are just like one word slides. Like they're Alex Hormozi type presentations, images and slides, right? Images and words, right? It's a very simple presentation, but the value is in the content, like they're the spoken content, and you can take a bunch of notes, right? So I took like a massive amount of notes during both days. The first day is all about, getting to know people that are there, and the first day they walk you through a few different people talk to you. And these are executives within the company. There are people that work in this, what they call the advisory division. So they're helping small business owners like me. But you also talk to people that work on the portfolio side of the business, which means on the portfolio side means they work with businesses they acquire and they help them scale. Okay. Those are the ones I mentioned that they scale up and then they sell again, right? So you're talking to, really, really top talent here, right? Executives that are making 500,000 a year to $1 million a year. That's the level of executive you're talking to. And they're talking to you about how to become a better CEO, better owner of your business, what's important to scale your business. And this concept really stuck with me. And Alex has mentioned this a bunch of times, but this really came home to me at this event. Businesses grow to the level of their constraints, right? They'll grow to the level of the constraint, of the current constraint of the business. They'll grow to that level of their constraints. It's up to the leader to correctly identify those constraints and focus on fixing them. Okay. Because throughout the 2 days, a common theme, a recurring theme was that most business owners do not identify what their actual constraint is. And even if they do, they rarely have the focus and the resources to put everything on it to solve it, to move on to the next constraint. Okay. And that is probably the biggest takeaway I got from that event. Most businesses, most leaders do not know what their constraint is. And even if they do, they don't focus enough time and resources to solve it. They'd rather start a new business. They'd rather make a new offer. They'd rather find a new market than actually tackle the difficult problems with a business. And that really resonated with me, guys. Like, this was a huge thing. It was a very eye-opening experience for me, saying, yeah, you know what, that's true, right? And it wasn't clear to me what my constraint is, right? I always assume it's more leads, right? But I'm like, well, is it really more leads? And then they'd walk you through this methodology of kind of figuring this out. So the first day was all about that. First of all, where you are in your business right now. They look at all the drivers of growth, revenue, EBITDA, like churn rate, retention, all these things, right? All the things that add value to a business. So you're you're plugging in your numbers into this workbook, and then you realize and then you try to calculate the value of your business, like how much it could sell for. Okay. And several people kind of walk you through this. And let me tell you, a lot of people in the room, their businesses weren't worth nearly as much as they thought, because there's something called risks of buying a business, right? And most of the people there had a really big risk, which is key man risk. It's called key man risk, because throughout the day, we talked about the things that add value to the business. And then we talked about the things that subtract value from a business, right? Which is, number one, how much revenue you're making. Like, just period in a story. You have to make enough revenue for someone to want to buy the business from you. Okay. And you want to remove as much risk as you can from that transaction. Key man risk and channel risk and customer risk, all these different risks, right? So once you evaluate both types of the things that add value, things that subtract value, you went through an exercise of figuring out how much your business was worth. And for most of us, it wasn't worth much because we have all these risks, right? Our revenue is not high enough. One person's running the company, they're the face of the company, and the marketing and the fulfillment, all these things. But the point of that exercise wasn't really to sell your business, because that we're not there for that, right? That's not the goal of this event. The goal is to identify how to grow to where you'd like to be, right? Because if you ask people, do you want to sell your business? Most people would say no. But they said you should say yes to sell your business, because if you can build a business that's sellable, you increase the value of the business, obviously, and you also make you create a business that's easier to manage, easier to own. Okay. So they asked that question throughout the day. Who wants to sell their business? In the beginning, not many people. By the end of the event, everyone wanted to sell their business, right? Because it was kind of a trick question. Like, people that want to sell their business will increase the value inherently. And people that want to they learn how to build a business that's sellable will make a better business. They'll just make a better business. It's less, time consuming, and it's more scalable, and makes more money, right? And a lot of owners don't make the tough decisions that they need to make to really make a business scalable and make more money. Okay. One of the things they talked about, right, is pricing. Okay. Pricing. They said most businesses don't sell their service or their product for enough money. I don't know if that's a problem in real estate or not, But most business owners really struggle with that, right? They're trying to do some kind of race to the bottom. They're underpriced. Most business owners are underpriced. So I thought that was really interesting. And they talked a lot about strategies around that, right? Too many businesses have too many expenses. They're spending money on things that aren't growing the business. They're spending money on things that are not value generating, revenue generating activities, revenue generating sources, right? So another big problem. There were a lot of people. I met a lot of people at the event. The other facet of this event, day one, was meeting everybody, right? And when I've been doing high level masterminds, some of these workshops, conferences for a really long time. I've been attending real estate conferences, I think for like 10, 15 years, like a while. I've been attending a lot of conferences. I've been to the big Keller Williams conferences. I've been to NAR. I've been to Inman Connect. I've been to a lot of different conferences. And for me, uh, now that I'm, at this level of the business, I limit my attendance really to some of these like smaller events that are more about masterminding with high producers, people that are at my level or higher, and that are smaller because they allow for more networking, better networking, right? I find that the really big event, the 5,000 person event, the 10,000 person event, that kind of networking is a lot harder. You got to really work for it to find people that are worth talking to, worth learning from, because it's a bunch of randos. Again, no offense, right? But anyone can go to a conference. I don't want to like gatekeep the conference, but if I want to go and meet someone, I want to find someone that I can learn from, right? And it can be really hard to learn from someone that's just getting started. For example, I've been to a lot of conferences. I go to the high level conference. I've been to 3 or 4 events for high level, and they did a small group mastermind, which was amazing, like small group mastermind. And then I went to their big conference in October, and that was just not that valuable compared to the mastermind. So I made a decision. If I'm going to attend events, like get out of my house, leave my family for a few days, it has to be a high value event like that, right? Small group, high networking opportunity, very focused, right? Just tactical, ready to go. And I got to sit next to at this event, day one. So got to sit next to a guy that runs essentially the exact same business I run, except that in the medical field, geared more towards administrative tasks, more like virtual assistant, like a true virtual assistant agency. Because Power ISA is a virtual assistant agency, but we specialize in appointment centers for real estate. Like we are niched down to the niche down, right? That's we're pretty focused on that. So and he had a very similar business to mine, and he was making more money than me, and he is 100% focused on ads. He generates his clients through paid ads, and they have really good numbers on that. So immediately, within the first 5 minutes of me sitting down, I met someone that was super interesting to me. I was like blown away by the quality of person that was right there next to me, right? Man, that was a lot of luck too. But throughout the event, I met people that had like chess academy, someone that had like a tutoring company, all kinds of home service pros, people that did just general home services, people that did roofing. I met a guy that had a chain of hamburger restaurants, a lot of real estate people, investors, wholesalers, mortgage. I think 2 or 3 mortgage guys were there. It was a good mix of people, and people that did, tourism-based businesses like events and excursions, and it was a doctor, people that did medical services, in South Africa. There were people mostly from the U.S., but I was joining from Mexico. There was people there from Eastern Europe, from like Paris, France, from Singapore, South Africa. It was crazy. There was a good chunk of people that just came from all over the world to experience this event. So I actually felt pretty awesome, being with a group like that. So just the environment, the network, the people that attended was like worth the price of admission for me, right? Because I got so much value from learning from people, and I was surprised because and a lot of people there were kind of in the same kind of revenue range, right? A lot of business there, I'd say a few were in the 0 to 1 million range of like total revenue for a year, and most were like in the $1 to $3 million range, in that range, and then a few of them were 10 million and above, like above $10 million a year, which is crazy, right? But they were there. They wanted to get a lot of value from an event like that. I thought was really interesting, right? So just the network and the people I met was awesome. Side note, I've got some people signing up with me, right, that are going to hire me. So again, that's something, maybe specific to Power ISA. But now when I attend some of these events, I want to find clients, right? Sometimes, right? Why not? You're there, you're building a relationship. I'm not there to pitch anybody on anything. I'm there to talk about my business. And just talking about your business can get people to talk to you. So, anytime you're at a networking event with other business owners, that's always a plus. That wasn't really a thing for me early on. Now it's like I usually expect to like pay for the event just on the sales I'm going to generate from something like that, right? It doesn't always work out that way, but that, it does a lot of times, which is kind of crazy, right? So I definitely would, that's a nice thing to have, a nice cherry on top that I'll get business. I've already signed up one client, probably going to sign up another one or two, right? But again, wasn't a sales event for me. It wasn't a business development. It was a strategy business growth event, right? But the network was great, phenomenal. The other thing, that we focused on, this was day two, right? Day two. I already talked to you about day one. Day two was more focused. Okay. We broke up into small groups. I think it was like 10 people per group. There was like 100 people there, right? So, and let me tell about day one. The end of day one, Alex himself comes out for the last couple hours, which I thought was pretty cool. Alex Hormozi comes out. He's a little shorter than I thought he'd be because, I only see him on camera. A very cool guy. And he would just like take questions, just talk about a topic. And then the last part of the day was Alex himself pitching you on like the high level mastermind of this program. There's the scaling workshop, and then there's a high level mastermind, after that. And, spoiler alert, I signed up for that. Just, signed up for that. It's a higher price point. It's the same thing, but more personalized to your business. You get to talk to a lot of the same people, right? So, and I did that, and I actually got to, chat with Alex after that, like a little cocktail hour. And I thought it was pretty cool. So I got to talk to the man, the man behind the myth. Very cool guy, just a very nice guy, a very funny guy. The guy's just cracking jokes left and right. And that's a little bit different than some of his, online persona tends to lead you to think. I thought that was kind of funny. It's just very charming, very polite, just a very cool guy. And I got to talk to him, and I told him about my business, and he said, what's your issue? What do you want to accomplish, right? With this program? And I said, you know what? I want to grow the business. It's not clear to me what my main constraint is. I have several, right? And I'll share them with you guys. For us, always client acquisition is a challenge. And we're trying to develop paid ads as a new channel to acquire clients, and it's been working. I'd say it's been working okay, not amazing. It's been working okay. And we're getting new clients through paid ads. But I'm thinking, should I double down on my organic, right? Because I've had issues with that, like doubling down on my content, because I usually generate 95% of my business comes from content. Things like this, actually, right? People find me, I add value to their business, I add value to their team, and they want to work with us. 95% of our business comes that way, okay? So I want to try and balance it out for a lot of reasons, right? And want to grow it. And when I told that to Alex, he said, how do you currently get customers right now? I said, well, organic. He goes, well, break it down more. And I said, well, content, partnerships with other content creators, coaches, Facebook groups, and referral recommendation, right? And he said, oh, whoa. He goes, those are 3 different channels. And if you want to grow those, each strategy is very different, right? So I think the first thing to do is to collect more data, right? You have to figure out which is your most valuable, your best customer acquisition channel. And you really need to double down on that. You really need to double down on that. And I'm like, okay, interesting. Okay, well, this is worth, talking about more, right? So I think that's going to be the focus of my journey through this whole program, through the scaling workshop and through the high level mastermind. It's called VAM, VAM. Will be that. Identifying the constraint, plotting on a strategy, and then executing on that, right? For me. So not just for the whole group. But that was the end of day one, which was awesome. And then, I went and I went and had dinner with the person next to me, right? The other virtual agency owner. Went and had dinner, and we just talked about everything, man. That was probably one of the highlights of the trip. Just the empathy, the amount of empathy you have with another business owner kind of going through it like having the same struggles with you, with clients, with employees, with staff members, with the virtual assistants themselves. We talked about tools and technology, and I mean, we just that was it was only like an hour or two, but that was another thing that was worth the price of admission. Just having that dinner with such an interesting person, just willing to share. And me too. I think we had value to each other. We both gave ourselves some suggestions. And that can be really hard to do sometimes. I'll just be honest with you. I am not the most outgoing. This might be a surprise to some of you. I'm not the most outgoing person always, right? People get surprised by that. I'm actually a very introverted person. So for me to go out and tell someone, hey, you're in the same industry as me, let's mastermind, let's talk about, that's hard for me to do. And I can imagine that's hard for people to trust someone. Like, why should I do this with you? I don't even know who you are, right? Not personally. So that was very valuable for me. And I really recommend you, whoever's watching this, to consider doing that, right? Because a lot of folks, 99% of people watching this are real estate agents or in the real estate space, mortgage investors, real estate pros, maybe some marketers in there. Like, you should find a way to talk with people that are at or above, preferably above, like this guy was for me, above your income level, and just talk, right? Because that, again, it's everyone's journey is different. You can't just do the same thing as someone else and have the same result. I'm not saying that, but you're getting the amount of value you'll gain and the empathy and the connection you'll have with someone is going to be awesome. You're going to have to trust me on that one, right? That is just a great experience to have. And a lot of people do this with their BNI, groups and their local chamber of commerce groups. If you're getting that from that local group, then that's amazing. But I'd recommend talking to a real estate person, someone that goes through your exact same struggles. And again, it might have to be outside your market, it might have to be outside your area. That's fine. If you have someone in your own brokerage in your own city you can do that with, you're lucky, right? You might have to go outside your market. But the amount of value you can get from those interactions, even though they're small, can be massive, can just be huge, 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 right? So really recommend that. So day two, now we're going to get into day two. Day two was different setups, small groups. And each of these, we had a group of, I think, 6 or 7 executives that would rotate between the groups. We were all sitting in separate parts of this big room, different parts of this building. The whole thing was held at acquisition.com's headquarters, a really nice building in Las Vegas. Okay. So we were all spread out in this area. And they would take turns. They would do 30 minutes of straight up Q&A. And what they recommended us to do was to ask the most selfish question as possible. And then the speaker would try to make it valuable for everyone, right? Like, but don't hold back. They said, ask a burning need, a burning question that you have, right? Like, just go for it. Don't hold back. Great. So this is day two. So I had already signed up for this, high level mastermind already. But if I hadn't signed up, going through day two would have convinced me to sign up. Like 100%, because the quality of if day one, I was impressed by the people at day one. I was super impressed by the people at day two. I mean, these were executives. Some of them were also founders of companies. They had exited, huge marketing agencies or other startups, and or they had worked at these big consulting companies, growing businesses, had gone on their own, had worked at startups, scaling massive billion-dollar startups, and they're now working for Alex. Doing essentially the same thing, right? Helping companies grow, okay? Identifying the constraint and helping the companies focus and solve that constraint. And then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, right? I thought it was super interesting. We got someone to talk about marketing, like back-end offer marketing. We got a guy, really impressive guy, probably one of the most impressive of the day, to talk about front-end marketing, offers and conversion rates and landing pages. I got some really good notes, from that guy. And then we talked to his head of sales for the advisory for this program, actually, right? So we got to talk to the marketing head of the program that we were attending, and we got to talk to the head of sales for the program we were attending. Really impressive guys. One of them, actually, if you guys are in the online business space, there's this influencer called, Tanner Chidester, who talks about agency owners. His brother is the head of sales. So he came in, I'm like, this guy looks exactly like this guy I follow online. Holy cow. He's got to be related to him. It's not exactly the same guy, but he has got to be related to him. And he was. He's his younger brother, which I thought was kind of crazy. Funny story. But he was amazing salesperson. I asked him about salespeople and compensation. They answered questions like super niche tactical questions, very high level strategic questions. One of the business owners there runs a brick and mortar business that they're selling services to fleet managers of different like companies that have large vehicle fleets, right? Like that is his target. And he walked away with some really great tips on how to sell that service because he's struggling. He's got a few clients, word of mouth, this and that, but he hasn't been able to scale it, right? Like his EBITDA for that business was almost zero. It pays the bills, not much is left over at the end of the day, right? So they gave him some great tips on that. Like a lot of people, got some really great advice. So I learned as much from the other questions as I did from my own questions, right? So one of the guys was, a former founder that had exited a couple companies, just a very impressive guy, right? And he just did an amazing job talking about strategy. Like, hey, fundamental question for your business, right? Are you demand constrained or are you supply constrained? In our parlance in real estate, are you buyer constrained or are you seller constrained, right? And again, this can be different because a lot of people want to focus on sellers, but are you in a buyer's market or are you in a seller's market? Because the strategies to succeed in either are different, okay? Like what's the fundamental blocker on your business? Acquiring more buyers or getting more listings to sell them, right? Like he was talking about at that level for any business, right? At that level. So I thought that was super interesting, very, very impressive as well, right? So I took just from these sessions, I took another 3, 4, 5 pages of notes, right? Just from the quality responses we got to these different questions. I thought it was amazing. And then by the end of day 2, Alex came in again and he took on like a 1 hour or 2 hour Q&A, which I didn't get selected to ask him a question, which I thought, oh, well, that's too bad. But we got other people there that asked him different questions. One about like, business choice, but more like life choice. Like, what should I do with my life? We got someone struggling with a family business and all the dynamics and conflict and drama you can have with a family business. That was really interesting to hear. And then just other folks that were struggling, to grow, to market, to sell, right? All these things, right? So I thought it was really, really great Q&A. And this is the kind of, if you follow Alex, this is the kind of content that gets put on his page, like on his main, YouTube channel, right? So that's a big one as well. So, definitely, you should check it out if you're interested. Check out the different Q&A sessions he's done with the attendees of these events. They do one almost every week. Okay, so me and my person that's next to me did some quick math, and we estimate these events probably generate $1 to $2 million for this company every week. Every week, revenue generated, which is crazy. Like it's a very valuable. I think it's a very valuable event, right? And there's 100 people there. I don't know how many signed up for the high value mastermind, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And having Alex there, and then he did Q&A, and then he did a talk about handling objections and selling. And his example was, and this is brilliant, by the way, his example was his own high level mastermind. So he pitched it to you again in a different way. He was talking about how to sell different objections and all his examples. It was a great talk. That was the one talk I took the most notes from, the most. His examples were all about someone that didn't want to, attend his high level mastermind. So I thought that was like a master class. That was like a sales master class of everything he did, right? So I thought it was really, really interesting to see that. Even more people signed up, obviously, after that. So I thought that was really interesting. It was really brilliant. And then, it was the end of the event. So I actually had to leave a little bit before it ended. So I probably missed the last like 20, 30 minutes of the event because I had to catch a flight back home. I wanted to, be home, be with my wife and kids and everything. But just overall, it's had a really good experience. Really recommend the event to you guys. Even if you don't do the high level mastermind, like the VAM event, I think you get a ton of value just from the scaling workshop. I really do. I think that as a standalone event is worth it. It's definitely worth it, 100%. Because you're going to catch bits and pieces, and if you just implement one thing, one big change in your business, that's like 100x return for anyone there. like 100x return on anything you spent to go to that event. If you just change one thing. I think if you go and take the high level mastermind, you're going to change more than one thing. You're going to make a bigger change, a bigger transformation, a bigger win, right? So anyways, that's what I got, guys. If anyone has any questions, drop them here in the chat or drop them in the Facebook group. Let me know if you have anything you guys want to ask. I'd love to get to it. I can get to it right now, or if you leave it, if it's a comment and you leave it later, I'll answer it later. With a comment myself or with a video comment. If it's better, more of a broad question. But really, really can't recommend that event enough. It was a great one. Meeting Alex was awesome because he's a person I admire, a person I listen to when he talks about business. So it was a really, really great one. So it was a lot of fun. All right. So I think we're done here, guys. Thanks for everyone that joined us here on the Zoom call. Thanks for those watching live in the Facebook group. And if you're watching this later on a replay, thank you for watching the replay. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.